Okay, hi everyone. We're at the Diabetes Research Institute with the first DRI BioHub transplant patient, Wendy Peacock. Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
She's actually here for her 1-year follow-up, which is amazing that it's already been a year. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
So welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
And it's great to have you here. We're going to start with a bit of the background for people who may not know your story. So just can you tell us a little bit about your life with type 1 diabetes prior to your transplant at the Diabetes Research Institute?
I was diagnosed at 17, so I've lived with diabetes, type 1 diabetic for 27 years. I'm 44 years old. And how I found the DRI, I started, researching. I was curious what's going on with the cure for type 1 diabetes. So I started researching and looking at all that was going on, and luckily I did find the DRI. So that was in 2002. Came here way back when to see if I could qualify for the trial that they were doing at that time. I didn't qualify at that point. Kept following what was going on, and came back in 2014 to see if I was a candidate for this particular, for the islet cell transplant in the Omentum.
And before you found out, one of the motivating factors to actually apply for the trial was the fact that you suffered from hypoglycemic unawareness. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did. It actually, for me, it started getting pretty bad. As a lot of type 1s know, you start having that. You can't sense when it's dropping, and for me, it was getting dangerously low. I had, the paramedics were constantly called out. So for me, the low blood sugar was probably the biggest criteria in my decision to be in this trial to see if I could qualify.
And once you qualified, what is it that you realized from your point of view that it took to actually be a participant? Like, what went into it? A lot of people are curious about that.
It is a lengthy process. The application itself, there's an application on the website. You can look at that. So, it's a lot of medical history and background, blood sugar logs. And then I had to come to Miami. They do comprehensive, they're very thorough at all of the testing that you have to do because, of course, this is research. So it was several trips that I made here to Miami. I live in San Antonio. So it took, probably a year-long process to qualify. But again, very thorough because of all the safety precautions.
And then once you were in the actual trials, what are just in a nutshell, what are some things that maybe you weren't expecting, or maybe things that were that you had to do?
Well, again, it's just the medical evaluations that you have to do, and you're in constant contact with the team here, which they're great anyways. But you have to do the blood sugar logs and stay up to date with all of that. And then once I was activated on the waiting list, again, it's following all of the protocols and all of the schedules, and so it's a lot, but to me, well worth it.
And how about when it was actually time to do the procedure? Like, how was that? A lot of people were wondering, what went into that?
Right, what the process is. Well, I was activated on the waiting list in April, and I finally got the call in August. So I flew down to Miami the same day that I got the call. The procedure itself, I had the transplant on a Tuesday. I was released from the hospital on a Friday. So the procedure itself is very, I think it takes an hour and a half at the most. So it's a minimally invasive procedure. And I was discharged, and I stayed in Miami for almost 4 weeks, just again for the follow-up and evaluation. But the procedure itself is very minimal.
So let's get into some questions from some of our followers on Twitter and Facebook, because they're very interested in your experience, and they had their own curiosities.
Yeah,
one of the questions, and one that we get quite often, and that we got quite often when we asked for questions, this one particularly is from Lindsay Fridge. She asked if the immunosuppressants have caused any complications for you.
Well, I'm on the immunosuppressants, which of course you have to be with this procedure. And I've been very blessed. Minimal side effects. And of course your immune system is depressed. That's part of being on the immunosuppressants. But I can honestly say I've had less illnesses, since the transplant than I did before. I mean,
Wow.
I was pretty healthy other than my type 1 diabetes, but yeah, I have had very minimal side effects. So again, I'm very blessed.
That's great to hear. And Jeremy Olson asked, how does it feel to be needle-free? Because for those who may just be tuning in now, we're with Wendy Peacock, who received a DRI BioHub transplant. She's actually the first, and she's been off insulin pretty much since her procedure.
Yeah.
So can you go into how it feels to be needle-free now?
Yeah, and they actually weaned me off of insulin. They started, the day after the procedure, a couple of days after the procedure, but within 2.5 weeks after the transplant, I was completely off of insulin. And I think as any type 1 diabetic knows, it's almost surreal. And I still, some days, it's hard for me to believe that I no longer have to inject insulin, and check my blood sugar multiple times a day. Even packing for this trip, I still have the diabetes brain. I was like, okay, I need to get my, insulin glute. And I stop and I'm like, no, I don't have to take that anymore. Or when you're going on a trip, for instance, I would always want to know, where's the closest pharmacy? Where's the closest, grocery store so I can have, the food or, refill prescriptions that I may need. I don't have that anymore. But I think for a type 1 diabetic, at least for me, I always had in the back of my mind that, dream of, what would it be like not to have this every single day or, every single minute or hour. And it's a dream in the back of your head, but you don't let yourself go there because it's just it doesn't seem like it can happen. So when I finally, off of insulin, it's hard to describe because it's just, for a type 1, it's like, wow, this is just, it's amazing. It's my little mini miracle.
And that actually segues kind of into another question that was from Naomi on Twitter. Her handle is Little Nomster. How long did it take for you to trust the BioHub to manage your diabetes? Because that's like, you like you were saying, you're still thinking about, I have to do this and I have to do that. So how long did it take for you?
Well, and I still think about it. And I think, being a diabetic for 27 years, I trained myself to, you're always monitoring. So, yeah, and I don't know, maybe for the rest of my life or as long as my islets function, I may always, I think it's human nature. Like, I still can't believe, like I was telling someone the other day, I wear the CGM, for research purposes too, to record all of the data. And maybe only a type 1 can appreciate this, but when you see the straight line across and there's no ups and there's no downs, it's like, that's just, wow, it's amazing to see that perfect line across my CGM. So, it's a miracle for me.
And aside from the blood sugars, another question that came up a lot had to do with food.
Oh,
So
right.
one of the questions that we have is it, do you, from Laura Hawksfield, and she actually asked, do you still find it hard to just eat what you want without feeling guilty or worried? How is that?
Well, and that's obviously a question from a diabetic because you're so, well, for me, I was so ingrained in my food schedule and what I ate had to be, had to correspond with my insulin or my exercise routine. And so for me, the food thing, I could, eat what I want to. I still try to be, very healthy because, I ate, the diabetic way for 27 years. So I haven't, gone off into donuts, ice cream, and all of that and everything because, I still have, that part of the diabetes brain is good. But for me, just that freedom of, if I'm at work and I have a meeting that turns from what was supposed to be a half an hour meeting into 3 hours, it's no big deal. I can sit there for 3 hours and not have to worry, is my blood sugar going to drop, or, driving for me was a big thing too. My blood sugar was constantly dropping. I'd, unfortunately drive sometimes and, get home and be like, how did I get here? My blood sugar is, 42. How did I even get home safely? So that freedom for me, to me, that's even more than the food thing. That freedom of not having those low blood sugars and not having to worry every single night when I go to sleep. Is my blood sugar going to drop tonight, or the paramedic's going to be called? So that for me outweighs the food thing, by far.
So this has definitely drastically changed a lot of aspects of your life, very important aspects of your life.
Absolutely, and my family too. I think as so many type 1s can identify, and you can't help it sometimes. You feel like a burden. Everybody worries about me. Is she doing what she's supposed to do? Is her blood sugar dropping? She didn't answer the phone when I called her, and my family doesn't have that anymore.
And that's a huge part of living with diabetes, is that it does affect the whole family,
Absolutely.
not just the person living with it. So
Absolutely.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And especially because, you have a son,
6 years
JP,
old.
so that's great.
Yeah, he's my world. So, so for him not to see that anymore, mommy's unconscious on the floor, to remove that is, I would do this all over again in a heartbeat.
So speaking of doing this again in a heartbeat, one of the things that is so great about this is you're actually you're the first to do this specific DRI BioHub islet cell transplant. What does it mean to you to be part of a pioneering clinical trial? Because that is what it is. So how does that feel for you?
Well, I just, I tell everyone, first of all, I feel honored and like it's my blessing to even be in this trial. But the team's already learned so much, so it's just going to get us that much closer to making this available, to everyone. So to me, that's like, wow, I feel honored just to be part of this. And I have no doubt it's this team, DRI, they will find, they'll be the ones to do it. I have no doubt, because they're amazing. This whole team here, the DRI Foundation, everyone, all of the scientists, surgeons, doctors. So they're our best hope.
And it's safe to say that you've been very open about your journey, your experience before and after receiving your transplant. How important do you feel it is to do that, standing from where you're at? And do you feel it can give others hope? There are millions of people that we are still working toward developing a cure for.
Yeah.
So how is that for you?
Well, absolutely, because, I know what it feels like. Because, some days are just like, I'm so tired of this disease. I do everything I'm supposed to do, and it doesn't matter. My blood sugar drops, or it goes, it's high, whichever one you're dealing with. So it is. You get so frustrated some days. So, but just to know that there are this whole organization, that's what they're working towards. So for me, once I came to the DRI the first time, it was like, wow, this whole team is so committed, to finding a cure. So just, if nothing else, hold on to that hope. And even if you're not, interested in participating in research, and, at least you know that there's so many people that are working to find that cure. So.
That's great. Is there anything else that you would tell people who are out there listening to you right now?
Definitely. If you or someone you know is thinking about or has any questions, obviously the website, there's so much information there, and just help spread the word, because we're so close, and just hold on to that hope, because we will get there.
And one last thing is that we wanted to share a comment from one of our supporters on Facebook. His name is Steve Siskowicz, and he writes, "I don't have any questions, but please just thank her for being a volunteer."
Oh, thank you.
And there's a lot of people even on right now that are thanking you for what you've done, because that's huge. And we're extremely thankful here at the Diabetes Research Institute for everything. We're so happy to share your story and continue building on your remarkable results. so we can develop a cure for all. Because thanks to brave people like yourself who come on board to do this, we can continue making progress in our work, so we can get this out there for everyone, and that's our only goal. And for everyone out there, if you want to learn more about our trials, our research, or just support our work, you can visit diabetesresearch.org. We will link it in the comments as well. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And Wendy, thank you.
Thank you.
We're so happy that you're here 1 year later, insulin-free and healthy and feeling great.
Thanks.
So thank you. Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.